Welcome to In Pursuit of Truth. This is your host, Sir Patrick Mack. Ladies and gentlemen, as we approach the official season, we got to cut our roster, which means some of you fake news bush leaguers are going to have to get cut. And there will be casualties.
Snoop Dogg and D.I.
Ho ho, MAGA dog still here. Well, only the strong survive, it seems, and it looks like the weak are getting weeded out. And speaking of weak, we're at the Huffington Post. Layoffs hit HuffPost after $4.6 billion Verizon media write-down. HuffPost laid off about 20 employees around the United States on Thursday, one day after its parent company, Verizon Media, announced it would cut 7% of its workforce. About 750 Verizon Media employees were expected to lose their jobs. That announcement came more than a month after Verizon took a $4.6 billion write-down on HuffPost's parent company, Oath, now called Verizon Media, which includes AOL, Yahoo, and HuffPost. HuffPost unionized with the Writers Guild of America East in 2017. A spokesman for the union said at least 15 members had lost their jobs. 2 full teams, the opinion and health sections, were eliminated. Pulitzer Prize finalist Jason Cherkis was among the reporters let go, and you can see his tweet right here. It happened. I've been laid off. It's a tough day for HuffPost, and we're losing some talented and beloved colleagues. HuffPost editor-in-chief Lydia Polgreen said Thursday, "We are deeply committed to quality journalism that reflects what matters most to our diverse audiences across the globe. HuffPost is aligning its talent and investments to areas that have high audience engagement, differentiation, and are poised for growth, at a time when our mission means more than ever." HuffPost lost about 9.5% of its staff, and Yahoo News lost about 10%, Polgreen said later Thursday in an all-hands meeting with HuffPost staff, according to several sources present. Okay, well, I most certainly don't revel in people losing their jobs. I'm quite sure there were a lot of good people that lost their jobs through this process, and although I think they're going to be okay, like I said, I most certainly do not enjoy watching other people suffer that way. But considering the HuffPost track record of putting out crap fake news, much of it we have had to kind of straighten out over the past so many months, it is no surprise that the Huffington Post looks like they are on their way to becoming Huffington Toast, right? And this is not just exclusive to the Huffington Post. This happened to USA Today, mass layoffs, really anything that falls under Gannett, which is a massive fake news 4 a.m. talking point conglomerate. So this is really interesting. BuzzFeed laying people off, USA Today, Huffington Post, and they're blaming it on these big platforms like Google and Facebook. Says these giant platforms, they broke our industry. This is an existential challenge for every single publisher. Well, no, it's just that these social media platforms put things out in real time, very much like Twitter and Facebook and things like that. And I think a lot of news sources have struggled, but it's all the more reason to put out good news, right? Now, it says down here that they were laying off. BuzzFeed CEO Jonah Peretti announced Wednesday that the company would lay off 15% of its workforce, or about 250 people, the Wall Street Journal reported. So like you can see, this is happening all over the place. What's going on with the fake news purge? What are we going to do when we're trying to get all that diversity? One such casualty was this Laura Bassett, who tweeted this: "Some personal news. I've been laid off along with some of my incredible colleagues. It's been a wonderful 8 years at HuffPost, and I'll miss my newsroom family more than anything. If anyone is looking for a culture/gender politics reporter, long form and short, I'm available." Is that culture, gender, or politics, or is that culture politics, gender politics? I don't really know, but either way, Laura Bassett was there for 8 years and got the pink slip. A couple other notables was this Nick Wing, who'd been working there for 9 years, and also this commentator Rowaida Abdelaziz, who tweeted, "No one goes into media because of the pay or the stability." Well, that's very true. We get into this field because of some illogical passion we have. All right, well, I'm not so sure it's your passion that's illogical. I think it's the news stories that some of you guys put out, which is illogical. All right, so look, I don't want to pile on these guys because I don't really know their work. They might be great for all I know, really. And as somebody who puts out content myself, I think it's not really responsible for me to just go ahead and go on the blanket attack of these guys because I don't really know quite much of their work. I don't read the Huffington Post. I don't read the Huffington Post because primarily they put out trash stories, but it looks like they are trimming their fat. They're not the only ones, and the media is in a panic. Now, this Oath Media is the parent company to a lot of these: Yahoo, Huffington Post, TechCrunch, AOL, Canvas, Tumblr, Makers, I've never heard of that one, Autoblog, RYOT, I've never heard of that one either. Maybe you have MSN, and of course Xbox. And I thought that was interesting because late last year we had another one of those outages featuring Xbox. Remember, that was featured in a couple Q posts. As a matter of fact, what we assumed it to be was a massive data purge. Now, for those of you who don't remember what I'm talking about, keep in mind, people like James Comey, John McCain, who knows? A lot of these people who were involved, particular in the FISA ordeal, were going back and forth and they're communicating on different kinds of comms, Gmail comms and Xbox comms. So while No Name McCain might be playing Call of Duty, he could also be selling missiles to Syria. You see what I'm saying? And they're going right through these Xbox comms. And when that was announced by Q, Xbox had a massive purge not very long afterwards. So I'm not really sure if that has anything to do with this particular situation, but keep in mind there's a lot of deep state knuckleheads wrapped up in these media conglomerates. And I also want to rememberize you too that Michael Isikoff of Yahoo was one of the first to sort of break this whole Trump-Russia collusion, quote unquote, story. Okay, so I can't help but suspect a couple of things. Number one, I want to rememberize you of the RIFs, the reduction in force that could happen after so many days during a shutdown. Now, I'm not exactly sure if that's what's in play here, but I find the timing very suspicious that we are well into this shutdown. Now, all of a sudden, we're seeing all these, what I would call pork fat journalists kind of getting cut. These aren't main anchors, okay? No one's firing Katie Couric here. They're firing these culture and gender reporters, okay? Now, this isn't really about the reporters themselves, but my point is that a lot of these fake news conglomerates, particularly the ones that we know conspired in the compiling of the Steele dossier, were working in concert with our alphabet agencies, the CIA, the FBI, the DOJ. So somebody had to be paying them, right? We're not exactly sure right where the money comes from exactly, but we have a pretty good idea that this has been going around, and a lot of these people are funded to keep basically propagating these fake stories, such as the material that was compiled in the Steele dossier. And we know that some of them were guilty, like Yahoo, like BuzzFeed, and they just happen to be reducing their force. Now, that's just a thought right there. Now, I have a feeling they are going to play the hard victim card here, and they're going to say that Trump somehow is responsible for attacking the media. I don't think that's going to play yet. I think there's going to be a few more layoffs, but as that starts to grow, I wouldn't be surprised if that is the approach that they take, but it most certainly seems to be very convenient timing. Meanwhile, over in DC, we still have this State of the Union standoff. Oh, that is intense. All right, look, I want to clarify from something that I said the other day. There were a few people that were saying, Patrick, you were saying that President Trump wasn't budging at all when it comes to this wall deal. No, he's making all these different kinds of concessions. And yes, I would agree, but my point is that Trump is not caving on the fact that we need a barrier. He doesn't want to do this drone thing. He doesn't want to do all this other stuff. That all can be supplemental. But the fact of the matter is that the wall is a very clear-cut representation of a promise that he made, right? And we know that that's exactly what he intends to do. We also know that he has the money and that he is pulling this out likely for other reasons. We also know that Nancy Pants Pelosi wants nothing to do with this. As a matter of fact, she keeps trying to cut out of the country. Now, she has already shut down this State of the Union officially. She did it unofficially a while back, but now it seems like she is saying no, not until you open up the government, and that's their hardline stance right there. So that's kind of what I mean when I meant that neither side was budging. It doesn't mean that they don't have concession points, but the ones that they aren't going to budge on, they don't seem to be able to meet in the middle. Now it seems like Mitch McConnell is going to meet with Chuck Schumer in regards to this matter, but let's hear what Nancy Pants Pelosi has to say.
No, last night the president accepted the fact that the State of the Union should be at a time. State of the Union just should be at a time when we can talk about the State of the Union when government is not shut down. I'm glad we could get that off the table because I know it was a source of many questions. Should we rent the equipment for the State of the Union? Should we have our families come in? It is so unimportant in the lives of the American people in terms of especially those who are victims of the shutdown, hostages to the president's applause line in a campaign speech. Thank goodness we put that matter to rest and then we can get on to the subject at hand. Open up government.
Wait a minute. What did you say? Applause line?
Got a flashback of signs, yeah, take you back, yeah.
Thank you, Tom Cochran. That's an applause line. I'll let you know. This will be our 10th vote. Do you want to? Let's hear it for Border Security. The American people elected a House majority that would. That's an applause line. Not for everybody, maybe.
What was it do?
That is an act to end discrimination against LGTB, and that is, here they are. We have to think in a very drastic way about this. We must embrace innovation. We're coming back to it here. You know it. Infrastructure, innovation, inclusion. Innovation.
Wait a minute, I get it. Dedication and devotion to innovation. You're welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Nancy. All right, well, while Nancy is trying to crack on the POTUS about applause lines, meanwhile begging for some herself, over here, New York Representative Lee, legend of Zeldin, is dropping some truth bombs on Pelosi. Check it out.
I would like to commend Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, who just yesterday said he would welcome the president here to the chamber this upcoming Tuesday. This decision that was made is not one to bring this House together. That is a decision that is not one to move our country forward. And I object, and many others in this chamber do as well, and I believe many Democrats do. And then I hear that we're about to leave again. I say we stay here. We should all be in one room. No phones, no pay, no one's leaving the room until we have a deal and there's white smoke. That's how to lead, not to set us backward, as we're seeing again by the Speaker's decision today. I yield back.
Okay, so Nancy, Pooh in the punch bowl, Pelosi seems hell-bent on getting out of the USA for a while. She just wants to go kick it and relax. Meanwhile, fake news media outlets are cutting back. Interesting timing, yeah? Now, keep in mind that a handful of these companies were involved in the leaking. They were also involved in the distributing of the original Trump-Russia collusion narrative. Remember, Yahoo, Michael Isikoff, BuzzFeed, okay? And all of them now happen to be cutting back. Are they losing their funding for some reason? Is there no longer any money for that? Is that all drying up, I guess, these days? Keep in mind that some of these companies also are owned by parent companies, which happen to be telecommunications companies. And I find that very, very intriguing, considering some of them have had some running blackouts. And of course, I showed you in regards to Xbox, although that's not a telecommunications company, you can communicate on those games. Now we get this out of the Hill. FBI lawyers' unusual interventions in Trump probe raises questions. Ex-FBI General Counsel James Baker was both a conduit of Hillary Clinton-tied evidence in the Russia case and a reviewer of the controversial Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act FISA warrant that targeted a Trump campaign advisor days before the 2016 election. And by his own admission, both roles Baker played in the case were aberrations. Baker told congressional investigators he considered himself a FISA expert, but did not routinely review agents' applications for the sensitive spy warrants. Okay, if you're an expert, you'd think you'd be doing that a lot. But he said he asked to see the evidence supporting the warrant targeting Trump advisor Carter Page. I knew it was sensitive, Baker told lawmakers last year in testimony that has not yet been publicly released. Listen to that again. Baker told lawmakers last year in testimony that has not yet been publicly released. His motive, he said, was that I wanted to make sure that we were filing something that would adhere to the law. I was aware when the FBI first started to focus on Carter Page. I was aware that because it was part of the broader investigation that we were conducting, he explained. I don't want to see it at the end like when it is about to go to the director of certification, because then it is hard to make changes then. My recollection is that I read the factual part of the initiation of the Carter Page FISA. He only read the factual part. All right, he chose not to read the non-factual parts, I guess. So the section that I was focused on is what is the probable cause, which we never figured out. Normally, the evidentiary submission for a FISA warrant goes through a special process known as a Woods Procedures Review to make sure it is verified, accurate, and up to the standards expected by the FISA court judges. Now we found out that all these FISA court judges seem to be a little funky too, right? When asked whether his review was abnormal, Baker answered yes. Okay, so the FBI's chief lawyer jumping into an unusual role on a sensitive case might be intriguing for inside the Beltway folks, but not necessarily alarming unless there's more, and there is. Both before and after he provided his independent legal review of the FISA, Baker took on another unusual role of forwarding politically connected evidence to the investigative team, once from a Hillary Clinton lawyer and another time from a journalist. Normally, evidence in any FBI case, and especially in counterintelligence cases, is handled by frontline agents. But Baker acknowledged that sometime in September 2016, a month before the FISA warrant, he took Trump and Russia-related cyber evidence from Michael Sussman, a lawyer for the Democratic Party in the Clinton campaign, and routed it to the Russian counterintelligence team. Listen to that again. It's very important. In September of 2016, a month before the FISA warrant, he took this information from Michael Sussman, not just a lawyer for the Democratic Party, but for the Clinton campaign themselves. Opposition research, and routed it to the Russia counterintelligence team. Thanks so much, James Baker. Then after the FISA warrant was issued, Baker trafficked a second piece of evidence to the investigators, this time a new version of Christopher Steele's now infamous dossier. And it's just saying a second piece of evidence, but that second piece of evidence is same as the first. It was just the remix. It was the Christopher Steele Wiki remix, right? That he obtained in November from liberal reporter David Corn, an avowed Trump critic. Okay, so the first time, the tip comes from a DNC lawyer. Second time comes from David Corn, somebody who is clearly not a fan of Trump. At the time Baker got the copy of the dossier, Steele already had been terminated by the FBI as a confidential human source in the Russia probe for violating bureau rules, lying about his contacts with the news media before the election. All right, so this guy was already a world-class clown before he even compiled this dossier. So at a time when the FBI was supposed to have severed its ties with Steele, Baker essentially functioned as a document courier. FBI memos I reviewed confirmed the version that Baker got from Corn was different from the one the FBI had from Steele before his termination. 3 acts, all by Baker's own admission, unusual and outside the normal protocols, and taken on by an ex-FBI official who also admitted he's under criminal investigation for possible news leaks in an unrelated case. Listen to that again. He's under criminal investigation for possible news leaks in an unrelated case. He's not just basically helping out with this Trump-Russia collusion situation. No, he is under criminal investigation. And these acts show that FISA clearly wasn't the first thing. So it looks to me like FISA was a cover-up act. And we'll talk more about that at some point. But look, the point is that anything that would have had to go through the FBI, at some point, Baker would have known about it. And if Baker knew about it, then you know James Comey knew about it. Now, everybody else that seemed to know about it has also given testimony, like one Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to come out if part of this testimony is what President Trump is holding over the deep state's head. I think that that's part of it because Baker pretty much knew everything because everything was getting reported back to him. And in particular, we have yet to hear all of Bruce Orr's testimony as well. So it remains to be seen how that all turns out, but those are going to be the two that I really think are going to bring the House down. And I think that, very much like FISA, is going to be bacony, cheesy, and it's got the deep state in a panic. Okay, so we know that Bruce Orr and James Baker's testimony is going to bring down a lot of names, right? And of course, that's a reason for a lot of people to panic. We've known this for quite some time. I'm not exactly sure when we're going to get this testimony, but this article kind of sounds like it's beginning to shape a narrative also. Remember, this is coming from John Solomon himself and Sarah Carter. These are two reporters that always seem to be very well trusted and well liked by Q. Q likes to post their links, and I think they're kind of read in on the real deal. So is this a way to kind of start shaping a narrative for James Baker also, who, like I said, is definitely going down for some serious crimes, but it would not surprise me that his singing is in exchange for something, and maybe some of that is just the salvaging of his legacy. Not really sure, but that's what I suspected when I read this piece. Now, let's move on to this. This is rather interesting. From WJLA in Washington, D.C. Comet Ping Pong Pizza catches fire. Patrons suspect arson.
The scene of another suspicious incident. You might remember Comet Ping Pong being the target of a fake news story that led a man to shoot up the restaurant 2 years ago. Tonight, Stephen Sheeta with more on what went down last night.
Another emergency response to Comet Ping Pong Pizza, an establishment targeted in an online fake story about child sex abuse. 2 years after an individual who believed the fake story shot up the establishment, a sudden fire. Photos of the flaming curtains and the effort to douse them.
I smelled what smelled like a lot of lighter fluid. My assumption is arson. I don't have the evidence on it.
While this man raced to pull the flaming curtains down, employees came running with fire extinguishers. Nicole LaFrajola saw an individual acting strangely around the curtains, coming and going from them in the moments before they burst into flames. She believes that individual set the curtains on fire.
He seemed like he was there with a purpose, obviously, and he didn't stick around. This gentleman doesn't acknowledge that he sees this fire. He just walks right out and doesn't make eye contact with anybody.
DC fire investigators gathered up evidence. They are examining it and will make a determination about whether this fire was arson.
Well, America's most controversial pizza joint feeling the All right, boys and girls, that's all I got for you today. I will be throwing some quick burns at you real soon. As always, if you like this video, please click like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to all of you who already do that. I greatly appreciate it. And to those of you who are new to my channel, welcome to you. Please keep in mind that from time to time, you'll be unclicked and unnotified and unsubscribed. That's how social media is these days when you're kicking around some truth. All the links to my alternate channels, as well as that tune that you guys like to bump to, it's down below. My email is down below. My Gab, my BitChute, my Real.video, which is now Brighteon.com. And of course, I'm always over here on Twitter at IPOT1776. That's at IPOT1776. And like I said, my email is down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, my Patreon link is down below. All that stuff is down below in the video descriptions. All right, kids, I will talk to you very, very soon. Until next time, this is Sir Patrick Mack. Keep kicking it.